This boy is dismantling landmines with his mouth because the war has already taken his arms. The girl next to him is his last relative. At this distance, if the landmine explodes, he will suffer too, but he is willing to accompany his brother. About 16 million landmines had buried along the Iraqi-Iranian border that has been devastated by years of war. These children who have lost their parents are digging landmines with their bare hands to make a living, and they are selling landmines to arms dealers at a low price. Children with broken arms and limbs from landmines abound, and these disabled children often dig more landmines. This is an Iraqi film made in 2004, Turtles Can Fly, and won numerous awards. All the participating children are genuine refugees, innocence, and maturity. The frailty and bravery in them are shocking and tear-jerking shining. One of the orphans is a born leader. Everyone calls him Satellite because he can understand the limit principle without manuals. It helps people install radar, receive signals, and adjust TV sets. Even adults can't understand these things. He can also babble a few words in English because he has watched many American movies. Satellite is a warm and generous person. He takes care of the orphans and helps them bargain with arms dealers. Get the fairest possible price. Satellite will lead the children to buy arms, dig trenches, build fortifications, teach everyone how to use gas masks, and secretly leave one for his beloved girl when the war comes. Satellite almost has the best hope of human nature in this war-torn land, so every village rushes to follow him, and every child admires him. One day, in a minefield, Satellite ran into a stranger who smashed the ground, an armless boy. The guy is also digging mine with his child, and he seems to have some telepathy, pointing to where he can search a lot of mines. Satellite doesn't like being challenged to his little authority, so he gets into a fight with the armless boy. But don't look at the child without arms, but he is extremely strong and directly smashed Satellite's nose with one head. But Satellite has a big heart. Then one day, when the children gathered in the ruins of the war to make money for the adults to carry the cannonballs, Pre-Show suddenly sent a message to remind Satellite that there was an accident with a truck. Satellite has heard that in the rumors on the Iraqi border, a child can predict war. Whether it was true or not, he rushed over to tell all the children to evacuate the truck, and sure enough, it didn't take long before the car exploded inexplicably. The mysterious prophet is the armless boy, whose name is Hengov. From then on, Satellite released his suspicions to Hengov and quietly took care of Hengov's family. When he saw him on the road, he would take the initiative to lend a helping hand and carry Hengov on a bicycle that only he had. Later, Hengov also predicted the war between the United States and Iraq. He cannot anticipate everything but occasionally dreams of fragments that will happen in the future, but every time he predicts, something terrible will happen to him. A blind boy less than 5 years old appeared beside the barbed wire. Stray bullets were flying all over the place, and no adults dared to stay there, but the little blind boy was holding the barbed wire full of barbs. When Satellite passed by, he and his valet immediately ran to the child. He recognized that the little blind child was the girl's younger brother he liked. Pre-Show raised his deformed foot to make her happy and pretended to fire at the Turkish guards with a machine gun. This provocative move caused the soldiers on the opposite side to fire, and they picked up the child and ran away laughing. What a resilient life in war to joke about mutilation and death. The two later returned the child to the armless boy, and Hengov left without saying a word of thanks, leaving Satellite and Pre-Show a little depressed. Fortunately, Hengov's sister turned her head to look at the Satellite, and the look back made him elated. Satellite fell in love with her at first sight, and there was no time to test and demonstrate her admiration on the battlefield. From the moment he met him, Satellite had been fiery and diligent. He cared about everyone but only paid for her for free. Usually, even the village chief would have to line up to find him, but when the girl wanted to fetch water, he would rush into the crowd to help her grab water. After bringing water that day, Satellite took the girl home and passed a small lake on the way, but no one was fetching water here. Satellite said it was unclean water. Iraqi children especially like redfish. It is said that there were 2 children in this lake who went fishing in the past and accidentally drowned. The girl heard this and looked at the stagnant water in a trance. Satellite thought he wanted redfish and would not hesitate to leap into this unclean water to find fish for him. However, when he got up again, the girl had disappeared. The girl's indifference was not directed at Satellite, and her soul seemed to have a transparent wall separating it from the world. She never smiled and always looked tired, which might have something to do with the blind brother he was carrying. This little blind child is permanently lost. He seems to have to sleepwalk in addition to eye disease. Such small lives are at stake on the Iraqi border, which is littered with landmines. So every day before going to sleep, the armless boy would tie a rope around the blind child's foot, but it was useless because the rope always unraveled by itself. Finally, late one night, after Hengov and the little blind child fell asleep, the girl quietly walked out with kerosene. He came to the village's lake full of unclean water, immersed himself in the lake, dipped kerosene on his hair, lit the cloth, and the fire burst into his face in an instant. He suddenly saw the little blind child standing there like a ghost on the shore. The girl ran home but saw the blind child lying beside her brother. He was very resentful, but the lake was cold all over. He hugged the little boy fiercely and bit him in the face. When the elder brother woke up, he saw that the younger sister was beating the little blind child with blood on her face. The elder brother got angry and asked the younger sister why she treated her child like this. Only then did we understand the cruel truth. The little blind child was not their brother at all but the biological son of his sister. On a sinful night a few years ago, a group of soldiers rushed into the village of 2 people to burn, kill and loot. In the raging fire, the family members of the brother and sister were killed, the boy without arms was pinned down in a pool of blood, and the brutal and inhuman soldiers captured the girl. Live, they committed utterly sinful things to her. The little blind child is the evil seed left behind by this tragedy, so his mother hated him from birth. Every time he gets lost, he is not sleepwalking but is secretly taken away by his mother and left in the wilderness. He wished never to see him again. He had told his brother many times that he hoped they could go the little blind child and stay away from the war zone, but his brother never agreed. He didn't know how much his kindness hurt his sister. Satellite heard that the little boy had stepped into a minefield until this day. The blind boy stepped into the minefield without realizing it. The teenagers shouted not to move, but the boy couldn't understand it. In a hurry, Satellite stepped forward. Because the boy likes to listen to the horn of the bicycle, Satellite pushes the bike carefully to the depths of the minefield. Finally, he carefully steps on a tree trunk that has been blown down. The blind boy hears him coming and greets him, a bracelet for girls to ease the mood of the little furry child. The toss just landed on the mine, and the blind boy reached out to grab the bracelet, and Satellite shouted and rushed up first. When everyone rescued the Satellite and carried it back, the strong boy cried so hard that his left foot had been blown up. The children were all around him, and the Satellite told everyone to go back. Pre-show told the Satellite that the Hengov boy had prophesied again that the war would soon be over. After listening to Satellite, he stopped crying and told the villagers to broadcast to the villagers. Then he closed the skylight and endured the pain by himself. The girl came home and saw that her child was back again on the other side. There was despair in his eyes. No matter how many times he abandoned it, he would come back like a lingering nightmare. This time, he picked up the child firmly, walked away, and went to the lakeside. Tie a stone to the child. Hengov woke up. He saw this scene in his dream. He rushed to the lake while crying. There was already a boy by the lake, the satellite, who had not recovered from his injury. He was drenched with his left foot and was crying. The older brother jumped into the water, and sure enough, he found the little boy at the bottom of the lake. The older brother who emerged from the water had a distorted expression in pain. He walked away, passing many American soldiers along the way, and he didn't react at all. He came to a cliff and finally found his sister's shoes. The mountain was windy and dressed in a red dress. A hard-working girl named Eglin was standing here not long ago. She chose to fly straight to the abyss, end his life, and no longer fear to disturb his sleep. Here lives a group of lovely children. They run back and forth amid the sound of landmines and gunfire. When they voluntarily raise their hands to dig mines, they will smile shyly. When their friends are injured, they will rush to rescue them. Prisho, leaning on a cane, broke his leg like a fly. Even in extreme pain every day, he would play with his broken leg as a toy. The deep, armless boy Hongov uses his mouth to dismantle landmines and embraces the bait with his armless chest. Although he treats others indifferently, he always quietly saves innocent lives. Even this little boy who was regarded by his mother as a scumbag with poor brains once threw his two little turtles into a puddle of water. Even though war and pain are everywhere, laughter and freedom are innate desires of every child. At the end of the film, the story goes back to Satellite. This boy with a heroic character all over saw the American soldier he once yearned for, but at this moment, his eyes no longer had the optimism of the past. He gave the girl he loved a hemp rope, but the girl finally tied the child with it and threw it into the lake. She turned her back and looked at the wilderness. This is the place where it grew.